see it running yet. Right, but, yeah, because it isn't running yet. Okay.
I think we're good. Diana, we ready?
No, this isn't running.
Because
I never understand why everybody's talking about anything.
We're good.
we're good. Okay, I guess we're ready to call this meeting to order on October 16th at a little bit after 6. And let's start, Diane, with the roll call.
Chris Cabezas,
Here.
John Miller,
Here.
Carol Perez. Here. John Brewer is absent. Vlad Dumitrescu, absent. Peter Dwyer, absent. Jim Chard.
Here. Okay. Was there any concern with the agenda? Can I ask for approval of the agenda as presented to us?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Chris Cabezas,
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Carol Perez.
Yes.
John Brewer is absent. Vlad Dumitrescu is absent. Peter Dwyer is absent. Jim Chard.
Yes. And I don't believe there are any minutes. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
Okay. So let us begin with the swearing in of the public.
Please raise your right hand. By the authority vested in me, the notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay. Any comments from the public? Separate and apart from what's on the agenda?
When we get to the items?
Yes.
Okay, so
Public, yeah.
wait until he comes up, right?
Yes, George. All right. Okay. All right. Any presentations from staff?
Not on the agenda, okay.
No.
All right.
No.
Okay, so now we get to the two items, the quasi-judicial hearing. I have the legal text here to read. This hearing shall be conducted in accordance with the City of Delray Beach quasi-judicial rules. The applicant and the city shall be permitted to present their case. The public shall be allowed to speak for 3 minutes each, or a maximum of 6 minutes if the person represents an organization or a group of people who are present but agree not to speak. The City Commission, board, members, staff, and the applicant may be allowed to cross-examine a witness. The city or the applicant will be allowed to offer rebuttal testimony. The decision to approve or deny an application or appeal may not legally be made upon personal views as to whether a project is a good project or not, nor may a decision be based on the numbers of citizens who support or oppose a particular project. The law requires that all decisions must be made on the basis of whether the project meets the requirements of law, the comprehensive plan, and the land development regulations. So, move on to the first item, and I'll bet we should talk about ex parte.
That'd be great.
Okay.
None. None.
None. Staff, do you want to introduce the item?
Yep. Okay. For the record, I'm Katharina Palavoda, Senior Historic Preservation Planner. I'd like to enter the ad valorem tax exemption file 2024-245 into the record. It's for 143 South Swinton Avenue, and the owners are both here to present.
Good evening, board members. Thanks for having me. Jaime Mayo, H&M Architecture. Me and my partner, Michael Hanlon here, the owners of H&M Architecture. And we don't really have much to present. We just brought some pretty pictures to look at from the exterior of the final product. I think they're going to pop them up. So this has been that's not it.
No.
All right, here we go. 143 South Swinton Avenue. It's a Sunday house, a Benjamin Sunday house, but it is a Sunday house. We purchased this back in 2017, so it's been quite a process for us for the past 7 years. You just kind of scroll through the pictures here with one of these buttons, I believe.
Yes. You can use the arrows if you need to. Maybe. Okay. Oh, okay.
Thank you. Nice. All right, this is a view from the corner of 2nd and Swinton, kind of the main focal point of the building, the porch that we recreated. Previously had all been closed in. They actually turned this 1,500 square foot house into a 3-unit residence when we purchased it, and now it's about a 4,000 square foot office. This is the southwest corner, showing the addition. And the chimney that you see a little bit further west there is the main house, and that picture I showed you before, the addition. And this is another view from the northwest side, again, where you see our logo is kind of the addition that we put on, and everything you see to the right of it is the original house. And thank you. If you guys have any questions.
That was brief. We may have some. Let's hear from staff, and then we'll ask you.
All right,
Thank you, Jaime.
thank you.
Okay. This is the property located at 143 South Swinton Avenue. It is located on the northeast corner of South Swinton Avenue and Southeast 2nd Street. The property is located within the locally and nationally registered Old School Square Historic District and is currently it's zoned Old School Square Historic Arts District, also known as OSHAD. The property contains a 1-story bungalow-style residence. It was built in 1917 and is classified as contributing to the Old School Square Historic District. The structure was built as a single-family residence and was originally owned by John S. and Elizabeth C. Sunday. Okay, so there's kind of a long history here. But what pertains to this ad valorem tax exemption. So February 6, 2019, let's see. This did come before HPB as a Class 5 site plan, landscape plan, certificate of appropriateness with a waiver and a variance, which included the conversion of existing single-family residence to office, construction of a 1-story, 2,789 square foot addition, construction of an 8-space parking lot, and then landscape improvements. The waiver request was to increase the width of the building that's facing the street, which is on South Swinton, and the variance request to reduce the interior side setback and to reduce the width of the landscape islands at the end of the parking row. This was denied at HPB. The applicants did appeal, and they were eventually approved April 2nd, 2019. Let's see. It did. No, it was also denied again. Okay. August 7th, 2019, the board did finally approve the request. They've had several changes. They've come before the board for a couple of other requests. After they had their approval, they did do an interior demo, and that's when we did meet with the applicants, and we found that there was a lot of structural issues, which also included them having to come back to the board in order to remove the roof and redo the trusses and the interior. They did come in recently for signage back on November 1st of 2023. They came in for the installation of the aluminum sign on the front of their elevation, also on the south side, I believe, which was approved. So here we are back in for their ad valorem tax exemption. They did get their CO. And okay, so this is befores and afters. I know Mr. Mayo did go through these. I'll go through these briefly. Okay, here's the side street on the south elevation, and this is after. Here's another southwest elevation of the after. Okay, this is the side alley. This is technically the rear area of the property. This is the before. This is after. Okay, this is before on the north elevation. This is after. These are some interesting pieces that we were kind of excited that they either, restored or repaired. They did have the original outlookers, so I know there's a lot going on in this picture, but there you can see like the main picture, and then the picture to the right is the restored outlooker, and then at the bottom you can see the original that they actually reused. So that was a really nice touch preservation-wise. And then also we did admire the restored siding pattern. So here on the left, you can see what the original pattern was, which was recreated on the new addition and the restored, rehabilitated structure. Okay, this is the before survey, so you can see what the original one-story residence looked like. Here's the after with the addition. Okay, and this was the approved site plan. You'll see there's a little green space in the middle. They have an inner courtyard, an outer courtyard, so they have a little bit of a green space in between the original and the addition to kind of separate the two different time periods. Okay, here we have images of before and after for the front west elevation. This is the south elevation on the street. Before, this is the side alley. And then this is the side interior on the north. Okay, and that concludes my presentation.
George, does your 3 minutes start when you're still in your chair?
George Long, 46 North Swinton Avenue. I forgot my hearing aid, so I don't know anything that's going on. This is Historical Preservation Board, right?
You're in the right
Okay,
place,
good.
the right time. Yeah.
One thing we left out on all these pictures was all the work that went into that house. That thing was about to fall down. It cost a lot of money and a lot of effort. But people like this are, like you guys are saving these old houses. I looked through there and I just saw sky up, through the rafters. Then I looked that way and I just saw sticks. And I looked down on the ground and I saw dirt. There was one hell of a lot of work went into saving that house. It's one of these things where you say, well, it's been there 100 years, what's going to happen? Well, if you hadn't done all that repair, when it happened, it would happen big. It looked like pickup sticks out there. So now we have a house that's well preserved. I'm for it.
Thank you, George. Anybody else have any comments? Okay, any rebuttal or continuance from the applicant? Staff, anything?
No comments from staff.
Okay, well, let's go to the board then. Carol.
I work in a historic home that was renovated, it's an office, but.
Can you speak more into the mic,
Yes.
please?
I know how much work goes into something like this, having lived through it in our own office, and I think it's wonderful what you've done. So I'm in favor.
Yeah, I agree with Carol. I think the siding looks great. The signage is appropriate. The massing is to the rear. The original structure is still recognizable, albeit in much probably better shape than it was when you started. I know you guys got put through the ringer originally with this one, probably because the property is associated with such a prominent name in Delray. So you know, I applaud that you went through with everything that you said you were going to go through. The only quibble I would have is probably the fence, you know, the PVC fence, which I was, you know, I don't know if I would have approved it, but I wasn't on the board at the time, so you got it through. So other than that, I'm in full support.
All right. Chris?
Yeah, totally agree. Congratulations on a great project. I think it's well done. It keeps that historic character, and it kept a house, you know, in the historic district. So I approve this, or I will approve this.
Okay. Well, I'm very much in support of it, and I sort of drive by every day and have watched it very closely. I do have a couple quick questions, though, Jaime, if I could. And these are more for just information. Is there a working fireplace in there?
Yes, there is.
There really is.
Yeah, we haven't lit it up yet. We keep saying we're going to.
So that is authentic, incredible. Number two, in the before and after, there's in the before, there's a lot of blue and a couple of awnings, and I know we're way past the point of questioning it, but what was the thinking on that?
Well, the awnings probably weren't even original. You know, the one that you see in the front was originally a porch, and they just added that when they kept adding doors to make this into a 3-unit apartment. So,
Okay.
are you asking why we didn't add awnings? I mean, I don't think they needed them. The porch is all covered. It's really the only entry to the building. And I think those were kind of brought down after the point, and someone probably painted the door blue.
Okay, I figure that's probably what you're going to
Yeah.
say. And I do have
that's the porch right there where you see that blue door on the
Yeah.
right. They enclosed it, and that was like a kitchen to one of the units at some point. And the other door you see on the left there, the other blue door, was another unit entry. And then the one you saw in the back was a 3rd unit entry, that one, which was actually the original kitchen. I mean, I'm not sure how they put this thing together back then, but it was a mess in there. Yeah.
Well, it's outstanding, and the location couldn't be better to be a symbol of what Delray is and was. So
Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you.
I do have a question for Kelly. This was residential. It's now commercial. And with commercial, we do have the right to request a landscape plan. Is that not correct?
No, with commercial, the landscape plan actually comes forward. Not on an ad valorem tax
No.
No,
exemption,
I
but
understand that.
It
Just for
was,
future.
it was reviewed
I believe so,
back
yes,
then.
that they
I
had a
think you had
landscape
mentioned
plan.
that it was reviewed in the 2019 site plan. So.
Yes.
So when it changes use, that consideration, if we were earlier in the process, would be correct. Okay.
Yes, that's
Yeah, at the time of the conversion from residential to commercial, it was a class 5 site plan modification with landscape plan, architectural elevation, waivers and variances, I think you had to.
Okay.
So the board reviewed the landscaping.
I do love the landscaping. I love the beach sunflower, the size of the trees you put in. You obviously invested a lot in that. I want to congratulate you, and I am obviously going to vote yes.
All right, thank you. Well, I invite you all to come by and take a look if you're around. Looks real nice inside too.
You should definitely take him up on that invitation.
Yeah, we're there all day, every day. Sometimes longer than I want to be, but
It's a juxtaposition of style from the inside to the outside. The inside's modern.
Sure.
It's pretty cool.
As many of our preserved buildings are. Okay.
thank you.
There's nothing else.
Do we need to call the roll here?
I gotta make a motion first.
Motion.
Guess we could do that.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to recommend approval to the City Commission of the Historic Property Ad Valorem Tax Exemption Application 2024-245 for improvements to the property at 143 South Swinton Avenue, Old School Square Historic District by finding that the request and approval thereof is consistent with the comprehensive plan and meets the criteria set forth in the land development regulations.
Second.
Now, please call the roll.
Chris Cabezas,
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Carol Perez,
Yes.
John Brewer is absent. Vlad Dumitrescu absent. Peter Dwyer absent. Jim Chard.
Yes. Thank you both.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Michelle, Katerina.
Okay, now we go to item B. Any ex parte with regard to this item?
None.
None.
No.
I had a conversation with Roger Cope.
For the record, I'd like to read Agenda Item 8B for 202 North Swinton Avenue into the record. This is for COA 2024-192. We have the architect and the property owner here to present.
Hey, Board. Roger Cope, Cope Architects, Inc., 701 Southeast 1st Street, Marina Historic District. I'm here with Ron Kurzman, the owner of the property. Thank you for hearing our item. Congratulations, Carol, for being appointed to the board.
Thank you.
Fantastic. This is a little, like any good project during construction, tweaks and adjustments and reevaluations are often made, and our project is no different than that. And so I'd like to go through a series of little tweaks and adjustments and minor things that we would like approval on that vary from the certified set that we were given when we were given the full approval to build this thing from your HPB board, I don't know, a year or so ago. So this is super brief history. Our structure is the structure in the background here, not the foreground. And it's currently located at 202 North Swinton, but it was built down by St. Paul's Church, in fact, right across the street from the architectural office, right? And so to make way for the expansion of St. Paul's Church, which I'm assuming this might be the congregation of, we believe at that time the Taylors donated the house and moved it to where it is today, which is right over here, near half a block from where we're standing. So that's the structure in the background. 2-story, single-family house that 10 years ago was converted to commercial. Not by us. So here's our site plan. Maybe I'll come back to that. But so on the next few slides, what I'd like to point out, the top image is what we're asking approval on tonight. And the bottom image is what was approved on this quote-unquote certified set of plans when we first appeared before you. And so very briefly, most of the discussion tonight is on the rear structure, the subordinate rear structure, which is the one on the left, little single story. It was, even though it wasn't in that photograph that I just showed you, it was also moved apparently from that site to our site. And we firmly believe that this little piece right here was the only original garage or structure that was really historic, and we assume that the other appendages that were made to it were probably aftermarket and not original at all, and that was very much substantiated by when we began construction, and we found evidence of that as we were beginning to make improvements to this back building. But so the really minor changes back here. We'd like to eliminate the shutters that flank this window facing south, facing the street. We'd like to eliminate this little tiny window up here in the top of the gable, and that's a theme that I'm going to point out on the other elevations as well. And we've installed and built this door, and we're putting that window in. But and we've got a kind of a pop-up roof element that is in this area right here, And because of some structural challenges behind this wall, we're really not able to put this window in, the transom above the door. And so the resultant elevation that I'm asking for consideration tonight is this above. No change in the footprint, no change in the roof. We still have the pop-up coming up out of the roof. Simple elimination of that transom is the suggestion that we'd like you to consider, eliminating the window right there and the shutters. So that's it, and shutters. We'd like to remove the shutters off the entire project, to be honest with you. So that's the only change in the main house in this image. So going around to the, this is the main elevation, the east elevation of the house. This is as it faces Swinton. And this is, again, the elevations that were certified are down here on the bottom, and our proposal is up at the top. And again, with the concentration on the back building, we thought otherwise in terms of the importance of the door back here. So we'd like to convert it from a double door to a single door. Very minor change. Again, the little tiny little 1 foot square window that we had up in the gable, we'd like to eliminate that in the gable. And there were no shutters, really, I don't think, or were there? No. But we showed the elimination of the shutters. There were only 2 of them right here on the porch, set back way, like maybe 8 feet off the front facade. You don't even notice that they're gone in this elevation here, but we'd like to eliminate the shutters on this elevation as well. And then again, this would be the north elevation. The rear, start with the rear structure. The only changes here are the elimination of these 2 shutters, really, really tiny shutters. They're on a ribbon window, so they can't be any tinier of a shutter. And on the main house, we were trying to introduce a little eyebrow roof element over this door, and we don't really need it or want it any longer. We want to sort of de-emphasize the importance of that door and that entry. So we'd like to eliminate that eyebrow, if you will, and then remove the shutters off of this elevation. The resultant elevation would be up there. I guess there's some shutters on that window of the porch that we're taking off as well. We might add the shutters back in a decade or so, but not today. And then last but not least, this simply shows, this is the main house only, showing the removal of the shutters, certified and approved down below, and what we'd like to propose above. No changes at all in the windows or doors, with the possible exception, we were trying to put a Dutch door in our original plans, where the top opens independently from the bottom, and we thought better of that actually at the end of the day, and we would like permission to just put a simple French door in instead, but no change in the size or configuration of any of the other windows and doors. And this is the standalone little subordinate rear structure. It's off of our alley. The lower elevation is what we had certified, and after we've really put our thinking caps on and developed the layout of the interior of this building, these doors were opening right out onto the alley, or they were like a couple feet off the alley, and that really didn't make too much sense to us at the end of the day. Nor did, after we figured out what the interior space was going to be, it really didn't make a lot of sense, because there's a door on the south edge of this space and there's another door on the left edge of the space. So we were flooding way too many doors into much too small of a space. So we would simply like to eliminate these this pair of French doors with the transom, and have a split window on either side, very symmetrical. The size of this window right here is exactly that of what it is on the main house, so it's a very nice and relative size of a window. We just didn't pick a new size of a window. And then, last but not least, get rid of that little window right there in the gable and the shutter. We had one shutter there that we would like not to put on. No change in the roof, no change in the footprint. I think it addresses the alley a lot more appropriately. Nobody would drive down the alley and question why we had a door, 2 feet off the alley. And so that's it architecturally. Very, very simple stuff. Hopefully you've had a little bit of time to maybe drive by the main house. So the main house is much further along in terms of construction and what we've accomplished over the past year out in the field, and it looks fabulous, in my opinion. It's the main house was clad in a shingle type of thing on the exterior. We stripped that away. We re-exposed the original 1922 siding. We spent many, many hours resurrecting and repairing and cleaning, scraping, and priming, and doing all the right things to the original siding. We kept the original siding on the main house, and it didn't come without a cost. We spent a lot of money keeping it up there. And in the process of that, with a few little, like maybe 10 square feet of where we had to repair an area that was irreparable, we went out and we manufactured and cut our own siding out of a very specific species of wood. We specially dried it so that it wouldn't shrink after we put it up. And we laced it in as professionally as we could on the main house. And it couldn't have come out any better. So I might suggest to you that what we did on the siding of this original main house would be a case study on what other people should be held accountable for. And so I say all that because on this back rear structure, which looks slightly unsightly right now, it's going to be completely clad in that same siding, and it'll look absolutely spectacular. Because when it was moved and when the other appendages were made to it, it had a combination of hardy plank here and glass block there, and it had some crazy things happening to it. So we always wanted it to mimic or match and marry up with the main house, and that'll happen once we're given the green light to finish it off. So that's it. The site plan, when we originally presented the project with the COA, we did not even have a site plan as part of our package because we weren't doing anything to the site. We inherited everything that you see, the parking off the alley. Here's the main house that was moved here, we think sometime between 1949. We've got parking spaces in the front. Here's the rear, the building in the rear. And so we put the site plan together at staff's recommendation and are willing to talk about any aspect of it whatsoever. We do have to rebuild a little handicap ramp right here, but that's super, super minor and non-architectural. So Ron and I are here to answer any questions if you might have them, and we hope you appreciate our tiny little adjustments.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you. I'll leave this guy up.
Okay. Once again, for the record, my name is Michelle Hewitt, planner, and this is agenda item 8B for 2 North Swinton Avenue for a certificate of appropriateness, level 1 site plan modification, demolition, and variance. So here we have an aerial of the property outlined in red. It's east front of the structure faces North Swinton Avenue, and to the south is Northwest 2nd Street. I'm going to go over some brief history. So the property contains two structures, a two-story frame vernacular style residence constructed in 1922 and a detached one-story storage structure also constructed in 1922, located in the southwest corner of the property. Both are classified as contributing to the locally and nationally listed Old School Square Historic District. Some board meeting history. In 2014, the board approved a COA and Class 5 site plan application with waivers that included a change of use from single-family residential to professional office with additional site improvements, and those were executed and completed. In March of 2023, there was an HPB approval for exterior modification to the existing structures, including window and door replacements / installations, roof pitch changes to the detached structure in the rear, roof material change, and repainting of the structure. Those items were approved at that meeting. There was the project came back after the installation of windows that were eventually approved by the board as well. So most recently, the project received building permit approval, and during construction, there was some damage found in the accessory structure, which resulted in 3 of the 4 walls needing to be demolished for the damage. To rectify the demolition, the after-the-fact demolition, we met with the applicant, the property owner, and the architect to get the necessary approvals in place, and that included an after-the-fact demolition along with a variance request as the existing accessory structure is non-conforming. It's within the required 10-foot setback at 1.8 feet. So I'm going to go through some pictures here. So here we have the front of the main structure here. This is in process here, so it's almost done being completed. You can see the improvements that were shown on the architect's previous presentation. It's coming along well. Here we have the southeast corner of the main structure, and then in the left there you can see the interior facing elevation of the accessory structure. Here we have the accessory structure with some necessary walls to hold up the roof that were put up while it's going through this process of the rear structure. This is the southwest elevation. And then here is the rear of the structure. Again, those bracing walls. And then this is the northwest corner of the rear structure. There's the alley there, and then it faces the interior or the north side of the property there. And then here is the south side. This faces Northwest 2nd, where you can see the accessory structure on the left there. So here we have a survey. This is the existing configuration of the site, where you can see the building footprints of the main structure and the accessory structure highlighted in blue. And here we have a site plan, again, with the existing structures highlighted in blue. Both the previously approved certified plans and the modifications proposed tonight do not propose any modifications to the existing footprints, nor any of the hardscaping. Those are all to remain in place. So here we have a demo plan. So the area highlighted in red is the area where the walls were removed on the accessory structure. So I'm going to go through the elevations here. On the top is the approved elevations from the March 1st HPB meeting, where you can see the elements, the shutters, and that window on the accessory structure that were approved. And then at the bottom is the proposed for tonight's meeting, where the shutters are proposed to be removed, and that transom window there as well on the accessory structure. Here we have the east elevation. This faces North Swinton Avenue, the front of the main structure. At the top is the approved elevations, again with the elements proposed for modification highlighted in blue, and then at the bottom is those modifications highlighted in red with the proposed, so that double door going to a single door on the accessory structure, and then the shutters being removed. Here we have the north elevation of both structures. At the top is the, I can't see this far, these got switched. The top is proposed and the bottom is the approved. Again, blue is what was the approved elements, and then the red is where those items are proposed to be modified, including the shutters again, that eyebrow over the door on the main structure, and then the shutters on the ribbon window on the accessory structure. And then here is the west elevation of the rear structure. This faces the alley. As discussed, they are going from the double doors to 2 windows, and then the removal of the shutters. And then finally, the main residence here, or main structure, again facing the west. The approved at the top includes this gable end element is no longer requested, the shutters, and the door, the Dutch door going to the door. Okay, so here we have the Secretary of the Interior standards with the pertinent or applicable standards highlighted. Here is a staff report excerpt from the Secretary of the Interior standards. Overall, all approved existing shutters are no longer requested on either structure, and the existing ramp pavers are also proposed to be repaired/replaced in place. These elements can be considered appropriate and compatible for both the main and accessory structure while being harmonious between the two. Consideration could be given to eliminating the roof design feature above the entry door on the south elevation, since the transom window is proposed to be eliminated. This is due to the fact that the pop-up of the roof feature no longer serves a utilitarian purpose. But again, overall, there's no concern with the proposed modifications. And then here we have the visual compatibility standards. Again, highlighted elements that were applicable to this request are on the screen. And we have an excerpt here from the standards from the staff report. While these changes slightly alter the previously approved proportion of windows and doors, they can be seen as appropriate modifications of the structures and compatible with the existing architectural style. Additionally, the variance that is requested is to allow the detached accessory structure to remain at its current positioning on the site, which will help maintain the existing rhythm of buildings on streets, as the structure is highly visible from 3 public rights-of-way. Here we have the variance findings. Again, the variance is requested to allow the structure to remain in its original existing position 1.8 feet from the property line, where 10 is required. Should the structure be required to meet the minimum 10-foot rear setback, the structure would be reduced by a size of 8.2 feet, essentially eliminating nearly half of the west portion of the structure. Reconstruction would allow for the historic structure to remain in its original position. The variance is not anticipated to be contrary to the public interest, safety, nor welfare. Additionally, it is noted that the structure will not encroach into the required site visibility triangles for Northwest 2nd Street and the north/south alley, therefore not impeding vehicular visibility at that minor intersection. And here we have a staff report excerpt for the demolition section. This is for an after-the-fact demolition, coupled with a variance request to allow a portion of the historic accessory structure to be reconstructed in its original position. Again, the alterations are limited to the exterior, including the detached structure. As previously mentioned, there was some damage found, and so demolition occurred. And now that they're here before the board to get the necessary approvals for the after-the-fact demolition. All of the materials are proposed to match what was previously approved by the board, including the windows. Here are the findings that staff used and for the board to use. And that concludes my presentation.
Before I forget, if you guys checked into the new policies on new parking.
I guess we could have public comment now.
Public comment? Oh, look at that, I even got a map here. George Long, 46 North Swinton Avenue. In order to avoid errands and boring things to do around the house, I actually went out with the tape measure and measured the setback for that building and the others on that block and along that alley behind the next to the Cason College. And highly unnecessary because the staff report says it maintains the rhythm. But I did, and the house down at the end of the street there is closer to the curb than your thing, and also over there in the alley back where you used to have an office. They're
George,
they're all close.
could you talk to us?
They're all close, okay. And I did notice that there was quite a few interesting plants as I was going around looking at the garden over there, measuring, and I'm wondering, what is this seaside joyweed about? That's all.
Any rebuttal of the staff presentation?
Two things. I forgot to mention rebuttal to staff's presentation. That we were eliminating that Tudoresque thing on the west elevation of the main house. So I wanted to point that out. Because we originally, see the that upper gable, in that archival photo, that little arched, not little, big arched wooden element up in the gable in the archival photo only occurred on the south elevation, and we thought we might add it to the west elevation, and that's what you guys approved, and we decided that that's probably not going to happen. So I wanted to point that out. I didn't want you to, I forgot about it. And then lastly, the only thing that I want to defend is if you maybe go to the south elevation of the little house. I don't want you to think, because there's a statement in the staff report, lower left, that the roof pop-up on that south elevation is no longer relevant just because we're asking to remove the transom. I would say I appreciate that statement, but please don't do that to me. We've already built the pop-up, and the pop-up is relevant. The door is still there. It's always going to be there. It was always there in the first place. And in our opinion, just because the transom may not be there, we certainly don't want to be told we have to eliminate the interesting roof pop-up because it's kind of cool. So please don't do that. I think that's it.
All right, thank you. Michelle?
None from staff.
Sorry?
None from staff? None at all from me?
None, okay. This is your opportunity. Okay, let's go to the board here. See, Carol started the last one, so why don't...
Yeah, sure. My question to the applicant, why are you removing the shutters from the design?
Short answer is the archival photo, the house didn't have shutters.
Can we pull that up, please?
I don't believe. So, try to stay true to that. And the simplicity of the main structure, pristine white, and you guys see it on all the PEB houses too. Back then, pristine white on white on white on white was what was being built. There wasn't a lot of color. There was simplicity of material, simplicity of a color palette, and so that's the short answer.
Okay.
We like 108 North Swinton, if you know which one that is, we may come back in a year, 2 years, 3 years, and we'll gladly, if we change our mind, find the desire to add them, we would certainly entertain it in the future. But for tonight, we don't want to finish the project and not put the shutters up and then be held accountable when we try to file for it.
Originally, you thought it was a nice feature, but you came back and
Yeah.
thought it
Yeah.
wouldn't work. Michelle, do you have
So
something to add?
some of those shutters were existing, and they were on the building for a long period of time before this owner bought the property. And when shutters go up, they should be half the size of the window width, and these shutters aren't. So I think them removing brings them closer to, compatibility with the Secretary of the Interior standards and our design guidelines.
Okay, great. And that decorative feature here,
Yeah.
on the original photo, I saw it looked like it was on two sides. No?
I wish.
So
It was on the south facade only.
If you go to the original photo, it looked like that decorative feature was on two of those roof lines.
Maybe go back.
Yeah. It was on the front, which is the east, and the south.
And that's being maintained.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We're not changing that. 1922. Think about it. Depression. The Depression is about to hit. They were trying probably not to put anything on the house extra that wasn't required. So I guess we got lucky that we got two Tudor-esque
Michelle?
items.
I'm going to quibble with you on that,
Yeah.
but we'll wait till my point.
I would agree. I think in the 20s we
was a
didn't know
boom
the
time,
Depression
yeah.
was coming, and there was more opportunity for architectural detail, and our Mediterranean revival structures were more detailed and opulent. So I don't know that I fully agree with that. And I think when this first came through, not that I want to quibble with the architect, but we wanted to make sure we were seeing original elements on the building, and so that's what we were seeing in this photo. We could not document the west and the north.
Okay.
So asking that it be removed is appropriate.
I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's not a primary elevation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I love the main structure, how it's looking. I think that's a great job. The changes seem appropriate. I do think it's a little odd, that raised roof feature. I don't know if, since it's a secondary structure, I don't know if it's that big of a deal. Does staff have any more comments on that portion?
I mean, Michelle, if you wanted to speak on that piece, I think we put in the staff report that since there's a window not going in there, we don't see the utilitarian purpose of that element. Didn't we put that?
Yeah, that's in the report.
Just
yes.
seems like a big blank space.
Yeah.
Does that roof doesn't come farther ahead to give extra coverage? It's the same distance, kind of maybe 2 feet off the.
It's the same plane, yeah.
Yeah. I guess originally you did it with the thinking that a window was going there. Why did that window get removed?
So originally the back roof was flat, right? So we're putting a shaped roof on it that's opposed to the gable that's going in this direction. And to the interior of that space, it was supposed to have been hand framed. The roof was supposed to have been hand framed, which meant that we were trying to capture all the volume inside that back space. We ended up framing that roof with pre-engineered trusses, so we couldn't capture the volume of that added volume on the interior of that back space. So there's literally like a truss every 2 feet on center, and there's a truss right in the middle of where that transom would otherwise be, which was intended to be an open space and a shaped space. Just on the interior, just didn't turn out that way. Now, what I could say to you is maybe I can have the carpenter do a framed extension of the casing of the door below, and without putting a real window in there, we can trim it out with a carpenter and make it look like a blank panel. Interrupt the clapboard siding that would be there otherwise. We can give some framing to it, some surface framing.
To make it look like a window without
Yeah.
it being an actual window?
Yeah.
What does staff think about that?
I don't see why. We don't understand why it's remaining. Why not just bring the roof line down?
I guess they have to buy new trusses,
and-
right, and new work?
This building is still in a temporary construction mode because when it had to come apart, based on the structural damage, we paused them. We said no further work. So there's like temporary framing and temporary plywood and elements. So they weren't supposed to move forward with construction. So we weren't in a position of an argument at the board saying, well, we already started. And we said pause, because you have to go to the board for the modification, the demolition, the variance, all of that. So I mean, the applicant can speak obviously on this item, but we don't understand the purpose of it, because there's no window, so the utilitarian need of the design is not there.
So,
Client have something to say?
if I may, the purpose of it is to highlight the entry door, the entry off of the south facade, which is a public right-of-way. The door was always there. It had no definition, when it had a flat roof above it, it had no identification, no importance, no nothing. It looked arbitrary and without any cause or purpose. We're trying to give that door purpose.
Yeah, we're missing context here. So this is what's there currently, as Michelle said.
You could just introduce yourself for the record
Hi.
and let us know if you've been
My name is
sworn
Ron
in.
Kurzman, 202 North Swinton. The context that I was talking about, we had a flat roof here. We were approved to build this, what you see here. Flat roof with glass panels facing west into the alley. So the choice is that we would, came to you all and said, hey, here's what we're thinking of doing. When we were building it, the engineer and the structural engineer said the hand framing of this, based upon the elevation of the existing walls of the existing structure, does not allow for the volume. It wasn't that we made a design decision, so that's why it popped up, because the engineering wouldn't allow for this. So that's why we're modifying it. What our goal was, in order to, from a design perspective, was to match the front house, to really have the back house have the same kind of pitch and look as the back house, rather than a flat roof on that back extra structure to the left. So that was the only.
Is that
moment of
space
clarification.
accessible? You say it's not utilitarian. Is it accessible?
Yes. It's a door to get
usable
in.
office space.
Yes, that door is accessible to get into the office. Yes.
No, I mean, under the peaked roof.
Yes.
I think what he's asking is
I'm sorry.
the interior space. Will you be able to tell that almost dormer feature exists if you're on the inside of the building?
Like, is there an attic?
Is there a raised space
A
on the
recess in the
inside?
ceiling?
Oh, I see.
Or
Or like to
I don't
mimic
think
the
there
outside?
is. No, not at this stage.
Not now, because we've.
And
not.
what was the reason to remove the window, though, above the door from the original plans?
Because there's
the
not
truss-
enough elevation for it.
There's a trust.
There's
Okay,
not.
That's what
there's-
you were saying before. There was a truss that goes into that space that you didn't think was going to.
You can't hand frame
The
it.
previous flat roofing was framed in this direction, from right to left, if you will. The new framing is going in the opposite direction. You kind of always go in the shorter distance, and because of the shaped roof that we're trying to create. When a project like this comes along, we're not allowed to architecturally attack and modify the main structure without a lot of headache. So we inherited a subordinate building in the back that was detached, and it was sad and lonely and disgusting. So we're taking, you sit down and you ask yourself, what can I do to this project to make everybody in the city's proud of it, more proud of it than it is. You can't attack the main structure. You attack the weakest part of it, which is the rear structure. What's the weakest part of the rear structure? This goofy flat roof over a goofy space that wasn't original, but yet we inherited it. So the challenge was take the Achilles heel of the rear structure, try to make something of it. Try to blend it in and make it more appropriate with the main structure. We're not trying to make it fake. We're not trying to insinuate that it's something that it's not intended to be, but it's the only place where we can exercise some architectural muscle.
Great, thank you. I think big picture, it's not you did the right thing with creating the gabled roof, and it is just a strange space. And the idea of creating maybe a faux feature there, I'd maybe want to hear what the other board members think about that. That's the only area that I really think is a little odd. Everything else I think I could approve.
Carol?
Yeah, I agree. I agree that all the other things aren't really deal breakers. At first, I was a little concerned about the shutters, but seeing that there was no shutters original to the building, I think that that doesn't bother me as much as before. But that window missing does bother me. So I think you either need to put the window back in, even if it's not letting light into anything. I think you should have a window there, or you should modify the roof to just come down and be at the same level and the same angle, which I don't believe you want to do. So I guess my recommendation would be to put the window back in, because it doesn't have a purpose. It looks odd, I think. So that's it.
Yeah, I mean, okay, go ahead.
And just so we're avoiding like designing from the dais, you guys hear that from me a lot. But if you're looking at the design guidelines, the land development regulations, does it not fit within the rhythm of solids to voids, or does the, what are the things that you're seeing about this window that is, relative to the design guidelines and the land development regulations?
I will say it was approved that way, and I think it should stay approved that way.
I think Kelly's right. We're talking about visual compatibility standards. So in the application of what she's speaking about, rhythm to solids of voids and things like that, or window patterns, is it compatible with the predominant window pattern style in the district or for this structure? So we, I think, have good thoughts, right, on how we're thinking about this, and that's where we're coming from. And in the staff report, there's a discussion about the Secretary of the Interior standards here on page 5, where this is addressed, because we're dealing with new additions and exterior alterations that shall not destroy historic materials. While the applicant makes a valid point in that there's some opportunity to express some architectural, expression, does this one element show that it's compatible with the LDRs, the visual compatibility standards, or the Secretary of the Interior standards?
John?
I think just because we gave staff the opportunity to respond to that, maybe we go ahead and give Mr. Cope an opportunity to respond to that as well.
So if you're telling us that we nailed it on the proposal, we're not going to argue with you. Just remember that next time I come before you with some windows. We'll gladly put that window back in. It will probably not be functional from the interior. We'll put it in. We'll make it happen. But we cannot take the roof element away.
I do not care either way. No, I didn't know it was an issue. Wasn't prepared to be an issue. It was more of a functional issue. I think we can make it happen. It's gonna take some finesse.
We could just, okay.
We'd rather modify the butt end of a truss than be told that we have to take 3 trusses out. That'd be a disaster. So we'll modify somehow one truss. We'll figure it out.
May I offer a suggestion with the board? Because clearly you're going to have some kind of language in the motion if you're going in this direction. Is that, you could discuss with the applicant about letting them have an option of either or too, because they are going to have to consult with the contractor when they get in the field and start doing the work. So,
Either or of doing the window or not doing the window?
yeah.
Roger, you look like you're not agreeing.
I think it'd be either or. Either. What are the either and what's
I think
the or?
either or is, and I haven't made my comments yet, but just trying to translate, change the roof and eliminate it, or put a window in.
We'll put the window in.
Okay.
That's a no-brainer.
All right. I was going to say I'm okay with it as was proposed, but I'm only one vote. So my comments for this, at first when I read the staff report, I was concerned about the shutters. But then and before I even saw the original photograph, I was looking at the shutter pattern up on here, and they don't make any sense. You know, a shutter, like Michelle said, should be half the width of a window. So when it's closed, you had the perfect one up there. So when it's closed, it, you know, covers the window. Well, on that north side, you can't even put really a fully functioning shutter on the second floor. The lower floor, if you had it without the upper floor, would look ridiculous. And then on the front, the windows are too wide. And that little tiny ridiculous one on the north side, I thought was crazy.
On the ribbon window.
Yeah, so I'm completely in agreement with the shutters. I agree with the window pattern on the back in replacement of the door on the alley. I completely agree with that. I like the single door rather than the double door. I thought that double door, the double door on the back looked really commercial. And then, yes, there's the other double door, which is now going to be a single door. I prefer that one. I love the roof on this. I know that's not part of the scope today, but that's what we're talking about. And then, you know, as far as the whatever anybody wants to put into a motion on the little transom window, I could honestly care less about that one. I don't think it is going to be the focus of anybody's concern once it gets put in. But if you're willing to put a window in, we'll take it. And then, you know, that's about it. Now, the only other concern I have is the windows on the back. Are they clear, or are they going to match what's on the front?
Match what's on the front.
We
Okay.
identified that in the staff report.
That
for
was in the staff report,
consistency.
okay.
The previous review, the board did allowed for those windows to have that green look,
Yeah.
and they will.
So they're going to be consistent.
Yeah.
Which I classify as clear, by the way.
Looks green every time I drive by.
Yeah.
But anyway, so other than that, I'm in full support of this, and whoever wants to make a motion can put in whatever language they want in on the window. So, but other than that, I'm all for it.
I was also worried about the shutters, and I think we've kind of thrashed through that. It certainly does make sense. You can't have shutters on the ground floor and none above, so I understand that. The parking, and because this is a commercial building, right? It was a little unclear to me. It sounded like you had parking from Swinton in the front.
We do.
As well as parking in the back from the alley.
Yes. That we inherited. That was approved in 2010 when the property was legally converted from residential to commercial. The previous owner, with Bob Curry as the architect, they did the parking lot, the light. There's a couple of light poles, bike rack. We have a bike rack. We have everything. Everything's legit.
So you say you inherited it, but does that mean you would still really need or want that access off of Swinton when you already have it off the alley?
There's no way in God's green earth we're giving that up. No. Not a shot.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just know whenever I go in and out on Swinton, it can get very dangerous trying to get back out in the middle of that traffic flow.
It's pretty close to that traffic light, so the only blessing is that when the light is red, it's very easy to get in and out of. That's.
You can also circle in that little spot and get forward to exit in a forward manner. Yeah.
Okay. And when we talked about a minor intersection on Second, was that with regard to the alley or with regard to Swinton?
The alley.
Okay, that makes sense. Roger, why not the double doors? I understand no double doors on the accessory building on the alley, but on the front of the building?
The front of the main building or the front of the main building? Or which?
Well, I'm talking about the main building, but you're also trying to take the double doors off of that, right?
No, sir.
It's just the accessory building.
Just the accessory building.
Okay.
We had too many doors. The pairs didn't seem to make sense. We obviously took it off the west, and so that only left the one on the east. We thought we would minimize that by making it a single door. It's a very small little building back there, and it just didn't.
No, I fully understand that one. That makes sense.
It also, when we talked with you and the owner, allowed for more usable space on the interior.
Sure, gives you more wall space on the interior.
Yeah.
We meet exit requirements, and it looked too commercial. We'd rather it look more residential.
Okay. All right. And you're not taking down any of those big trees to the north?
Not touching a tree.
Okay. All right.
What are your thoughts on the window above the door?
My concern is that space ends up being used, and that window might be more utilitarian than we think it is right now. That there might be a space in those rafters that would be used for storage or office. No?
Essentially, is the window just going to be to the attic from the outside? Yeah.
So if this were a bathroom and privacy was an issue, we might be asking for frosted glass or an obscure glass of some sort. So if you're gonna make me put the window in, give me the opportunity to put in an obscure glass of some sort, because it's gonna be looking into nothing. It's gonna be looking into the structure, the attic. So I don't want to put the same glass that's in everywhere else. I mean, we can coat the back of it, or we can put in a specialty glass. We'll do something very simple as possible.
Can I understand what the issue is? Is that a dormer coming out of the?
Yes.
Right, rather than just a flat roof coming down.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they want something in that dormer that's coming out. Got it.
Or eliminate the dormer.
Right.
Well, it's Carol wants the window. John doesn't mind the way that it's changed.
Well, we're getting
and then
close.
I'm still haven't decided, and I wanted to see what Jim had to say, because it's an accessory structure. It's not a huge deal, but I do think it's a strange empty space. So I prefer it with the window or with the roof line out, but it's still not a deal breaker. And I wanted to see what these guys had to say. Jim.
Yeah, I don't have a strong feeling on that. I think if that is a dormer that projects out there, just having a blank side there doesn't make sense. There needs to be something. But you said you'd also eliminate the dormer.
No, I don't want to eliminate the dormer.
That's.
But it's over the door.
It's over a door. It's over a point of entry. It's so if you look at the floor plan, maybe Miss Stewart, so see the red shaded space. So the door is the door at the bottom of the page. Mm-hmm. So it's a very, very simple, tiny little space, you guys. There's a door on the opposite wall at the top of that area. And so you see those two dashed lines right there. That represents the dormer. Originally, when I was sitting down and conceiving of the space and how we can improve it, we originally thought of having that dormer on both sides of this roof, making it very symmetrical. But the door on the north side was far less important than that on the south side. They were both existing. We didn't invent the doors. We inherited the doors. So we thought one needs to be slightly more important than the other. And the one that's facing the public right of way to the south seemed to be the right one. So, and it's already built. There's 3 trusses, to ask us to take that out would be a nightmare in the field.
Which is why there was a stop work order.
I think there should be a reason, why that roof line is like it is, and the reason was because there was a window there. you take the window away, there's no reason for that anymore. And it
Of the
looks,
dormer.
yes, and it looks,
If
it doesn't
that's
look,
your
it doesn't
position,
look
we'll
great.
put the-
That's my position.
Unless there's a
And that's how
question
That's how it
pending,
was
yeah.
approved.
Well, let's,
And
let
let's
board
make a
discussion.
motion based on that, and I think we flogged this one
yeah.
as far as it's gonna go.
Carol? You wanna-
I'll approve this, or approve the certificate of appropriateness, level 1, site plan modification, demolition, and variance 2024-192 for the property located at 202 North Swinton Avenue, Old School Square Historic District, by finding that the request and approval thereof is consistent with the comprehensive plan and meets the criteria set forth in the land development regulations, subject to the following: that the window remain, where do you want me to say? The window below is it the fixed transom window? Remains on the plans. Whether it is, I guess you may have to have a backing behind it, but as long as it matches the other windows on site and on the building, and the city is okay with that, then.
On the south elevation of the
So,
back structure.
Auxiliary.
On the south elevation of the auxiliary structure, is that
Okay,
accessory structure?
okay.
Second.
Discussion? From the applicant? Let's call the roll.
Chris Capezas,
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Carol Perez,
Yes.
John Brewer is absent, Vlad Dumitrescu, Peter Dwyer absent, Jim Chard.
Yes.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It looks nice.
Remember us next May when it's time for the award ceremony.
No legislative items, reports and comments. The chairman and I got together and had a meeting mid-September and drafted, you'll see at your table, in front of you, that there are 2 memos about landscaping and the natural environment. So I've included what was the original memo that went forward, and then the revision based on our meeting. And so this is what we're good with, but when we were both going back and listening to the discussion that night at HPB
Of this board.
and Carol, maybe I could just quickly bring you up to speed if that's okay. So back in December of 2021, there was a discussion, a presentation that happened at the board where there was some discussion about making modifications to allow HPB to have purview over landscape plans for single-family residential and duplex. Right now, those strictly go straight to permit. The board does not see those with COAs. The board also was looking at creation of tiny forests, which is, planting trees in a city-owned property to create canopy within the 5 historic districts as well, and then creating a legacy tree category. The memo went up to the city manager and then forwarded on to the city commission, and nothing occurred. There was no discussion, I think. But at the time, there were things occurring at the city commission in relation to some landscaping discussion, the tree canopy happening with the city, artificial turf was being looked at, but what the board was asking, nothing happened. So the board had asked, and somewhat led by the chairperson, if the board could revisit this topic, which they did in July, and they made a motion to create this memo, which the board chairperson and I worked on, to send it back to the city manager via our director to go on to the city commission. The direction was to take out that requirement to bring single family and duplex landscape plans before the board. There was no consensus for that. So the board said, let's push through the last two recommendations that this, HPB wanted to see. Legacy tree category is a hot topic, obviously, which we don't have technically in our definitions. We have a tree preservation ordinance and we have a landscape ordinance, which as in LA, you're very familiar with. So Mr. Chard and I put this together and we're ready to send it up. But before we send it up, Mr. Chard said, should we bring this back to the board revisit, because there was a minor discussion secondary that happened about creating a document of some kind or links to other websites and things like that for recommended landscaping for help for owners, but there was no direction from the board on that. It was a discussion that happened and then it kind of fell to the bottom of the pile. So Mr. Chard said, do we want to ask the board for any direction on that recommendation? And where we kind of, if I may,
Sure.
Where we were getting some of this example from was the city of St. Augustine has a very elaborate recommended plant list that goes by era. So it coupled with architectural style that occurred throughout the decades. And we looked at it, I think the assumption was, you can't get those plants anymore. But they are plants that we still use today that are on the list. So that was where the discussion somewhat generated from, and that's why this is back, just for a quick ask. I know we only have 4 of you tonight. If you wish, we could even say, let's send the memo up and have that other topic on a future agenda when the board is full. Thanks.
So are we discussing things, or is that, it was just, you just wanted to say that, or how's it go?
We can discuss it. I think the issue of the plant list was one of those things that we talked a lot about. I think Chris led most of the discussion on that, and we just never really came to a consensus, or the clock struck midnight or something. And my belief is that is a key component of the idea here, that we're trying to preserve the native environment of the period as well. And if those plants do change over time, that we should reflect that, and that the city in its role of guiding historic preservation needs to give guidance to to building owners and developers on those things, because it's just not necessarily in our DNA to do that. As you know, as a landscape architect, we tend to put into place what the nurseries have and what is common and popular now. And so some of these older plants and older landscaping are just not known, but they aren't extinct. They're out there. You can go to certain nurseries and find them.
And you could see them at the Historical Society, which has done a wonderful job.
Fantastic job.
Curated landscaping.
That was under the direction of their former chair.
I mean,
Give me way too much credit on that. That wasn't me.
I've got a lot of thoughts on it, but I could probably go on for a while. As far as native plants goes, there's always right tree or right plant, right place. You can say, we want you to plant all natives, but then you're going to have, some of the natives are water plants and they're not xeriscape items. And so people are pulling from, native plant materials that need a lot of water, and then all of a sudden you're watering a lot just to keep these native plants alive who love wet feet. So it really comes down to what is the appropriate plant for the appropriate place. You have some areas you're going to have high shade, some areas you're going to have the sun. I mean, it's like, yes, there are native plants that fit those bills, and I'm all for native plants. I love them. And then,
But she's not. They're not talking about native. I think they're talking about historically relevant plants, right?
We're
I
also
think
not
this says-
talking about requiring. So in this instance, this is the circle back that I'm asking for right now, because it didn't happen, and the chairperson said we need to ask the board. And I didn't generate this coming back, this question. It was out of a discussion we had. There was no direction if there should be any kind of recommended plant lists or books or periodicals or any kind of information available to owners of historic property who aren't maybe utilizing the services of a design professional, who are going to a landscape nursery on the weekend and saying, what plants would we buy? Like, here's a list of period plants that were used at
so
this
the
time.
city would put together a booklet.
I think we would probably point to websites that already exist.
Yeah.
Okay, it does say native here, so that's why I brought up the native, because
Okay.
I was just reading it. This is the first time I've ever looked at it.
Because I don't know if they were native focused back in the 20s and 30s.
Well,
just
all
don't
you
know.
probably had was probably native plants, and
If you
again,
go back
it comes
1,000 years, it's native, right?
yeah, and it comes back to nurseries. You're saying what was available now. It's like every year things are available that we didn't use years ago because someone has merged some plants together and something became popular and something's drought tolerant. And back then, what was available, everyone was just using. It's the same as now. Everyone's just using what was available. But yeah, I love the native plants.
I would love to see a list of what was being used back then, because I really don't know. They're black and white photos. They're probably somewhat hard to tell.
Well, a lot of it was completely inappropriate and did a lot of damage
Like
to our
Australian
environment.
pine,
Australian
and
pines,
Brazilian
Melaleuca,
pepper, and-
earleaf
yeah.
acacia, schefflera. I mean, you name it.
So the
and it
appropriate
causes a
plant is
problem. Yeah.
native, right? So that would be not fully, but be Florida friendly. It'd be native. And
The native landscape when Delray was young was scrub oak and slash pines and palmetto scrub and maybe some cypress when it was damper, and I'm all for that, but I would like to, I don't know if this board or the city, like Michelle said, is the one who would put together a list. I think there's probably a very long list of resources that would point people in the right direction. I just haven't seen the identified here. So if there was a booklet or something like
Well, the Native Plant Society, they do a great job of. They've got
right.
lists, tons of lists.
I mean, the recommendation maybe, and I don't know if this is a conflict of interest to say, is to use a professional that knows what to put. Right?
So I just want to warn that we're trying not to generate a project that would require fiscal investment from the city.
yeah.
So while that sounds magical to me, to have somebody help, I think there's periodicals, books, and what is it Florida My Eden? Yeah. I'm
If
thinking
there's
like-
resources that could be identified, I'm all for pointing people towards that. 100%.
This is where I was thinking we could easily go. I think you saw a planner in training who's like a intern level. We have someone working with us. This would be a good project for them to engage on and put a list of resources together. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't missing the mark if the board wanted something else or different or not at all.
I would say, give people the information, but don't mandate it as far
Exactly.
as landscaping at
Yeah.
this point. And then where it says here, single family and duplex, so that will be struck from this? Or,
Yeah, so if you look at the new memo, which is the one pager,
yeah, September 18th,
bottom.
right?
yes, sir, at the bottom. Then on July 3rd, following a thorough discussion,
Oh, okay, all right. So
the
that's
board made a
follow-
motion
okay.
for city staff to
Yeah,
work
yeah,
with the
yeah.
HPB chairperson, recraft the memo regarding landscape and natural environment sent to commission with the following direction, 1
Okay.
and 2.
Yep.
So I think the question that they're asking right now is, do you guys want to add a 3 of make recommendation that staff prepare a list of resources that provides historically appropriate landscape.
And if something could be identified without coming back to the board, you know, as a well-respected and accepted resource, you know, I don't have any problem with that, you know, or whether it's a number of books that do it. Now, the one question I do have, where a legacy tree category be created within the LDRs, is that specifically for historic districts, or is that citywide? Or because this board wouldn't really have any purview over anything outside the historic districts,
I
correct?
think we have talked about citywide.
I agree, it should be citywide, but
Yeah, I think in the past, in the discussions that have occurred 2 years ago, then again, this last discussion in July, I think what we were talking about is that create that category. It's not just create it only in historic, but create it citywide. But if we're going to be doing an LDR amendment, then that would, and let's say this goes up to the city manager and to the commission, and the commission says, yes, we like this. Back to the city manager, back down to staff for direction. Then we start crafting an LDR amendment that will eventually run through this board, and you'll be able to comment on it.
okay. Yeah, I think there needs to be stronger protections for especially legacy trees and native legacy trees, you know, most commonly oaks, which are, you know,
Yeah.
big and impressive and old and the first ones to come down when somebody clears a lot, it seems. So
Well, what would be a legacy tree?
I would think I'd have to see if is there a definition of that? Is it over 50 years? Is it over 100 years?
Is it DBH? You know, those
Well,
are
the-
things we would, so just
Yeah.
for your purposes, because I don't know that you know this, but whenever staff is working on an amendment or exploring and investigating what do other cities do, we have this wonderful wide net that we can cast to the other certified local governments. So the city of Delray Beach is a certified local government, our historic program, which enables us to get funding from the state and grants that are no match required. So we've got a lot of positives and pros, but one of the positives of that is we have a huge network of all the other professionals throughout the state in historic preservation programs. So like when artificial turf came through, we shot an email out to the, hundreds of people. What do your cities have? And we usually get a 10% return rate, which is pretty good. And we get to see what do all the other cities have in their code. So in this instance, we would probably do the same thing. Does anybody have an LDR or design guideline requirement that preserves trees of a certain type or definition? We would cast that net. So if this were accepted by the commission and put back down to staff to do that work, we would create that definition and then again come back through the board with that amendment where you could say, hey, I think you're missing something, or I think this is perfect, or whatever. We don't know if it's age or DBH or species. We're not sure. That would require some investigation that we're not at the point of doing yet.
Okay.
Yeah, the mention of species is, I think, important there also because we have a number of what I would call legacy trees that are not natives, but they have been planted here for one reason or another over the last 100 years. There were a couple of baobab trees that I know we had, and there were some sausage trees that a few are left, and I think that's not their age or size so much as the fact that they are unique and should be preserved.
I mean, you could make the argument for mango as well. I mean, the city had some original growers that were mango farmers and growers, and some of those trees.
Same with
exist.
banyan trees.
And
And they have a
K-pop.
cultural.
K-pop.
They have a cultural.
The rats got to
significance.
eat too, right?
Yeah.
So anyway,
I think the story behind K-pop is probably one of my favorite stories because I didn't know that they utilized the fluff for life preservers.
And pillows too, right?
So, and there's a pretty good sized one
Yeah.
right over here.
I'm good with this, and I'm good with adding. If we can identify resources to provide help to homeowners who may be interested in native or appropriate plantings for their historic homes, I'm fine with that too.
Okay, then I will add that if there's a consensus,
Yep.
is there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would note that John said homeowners, since it
Should
is,
say property owners. Yeah.
yeah, property owners.
Sure.
Because this is not a requirement, it is recommendations or
Resources.
resources. Yeah.
That we would ultimately put on our website. Is that okay for you to include in
Yep.
your direction?
Sure.
Everyone agree? Okay.
Good to have resources.
What's that?
It's good to have resources.
yeah.
We've got consensus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're just trying to provide as much support. If I don't know if any of you have, probably John, has seen the transformation on the website over probably since I've been hired. When I was first hired, it was kind of barren for historic, and we are just trying to add more and more. And we're trying to beef up the resources that we can point homeowners to, property owners, and say, here, go look at this. You know, here's how you do ad valorem calculation, and here's how you
Right.
get the plaque for your house. And so I'm a big supporter of having something there that I can send a property owner off to go read, and then when they have questions, they come back, you know.
I would suggest that we look at Institute for Regional Conservation in that, from that perspective as well. They're in Del Rey. They study plants and native habitats.
So I may be reaching out to my 2 landscape architects for if we get direction to go in this from the commission.
Well, I think we have consensus.
Okay, thank you for that. The other thing you will see at your seat is a memorandum from our director. This meeting will be moving to 5 p.m. All public hearing meetings will be at 5 p.m. The other ones already are. That is a direction that was handed down to our director, and if there's any questions or concerns that you have, you can direct that to her, which will go back to the city manager who is managing this. So next meeting, November 6th, will be at 5 p.m. Okay, so please don't forget. That's only a couple weeks away. And that's all I have.
Well, Kelly, do you want to start with you?
I don't have anything.
Okay.
Thank you.
You sure?
I'm sure.
Okay. Carol?
Nope, I'm good.
Nope.
I do. We had presented to us about 3 months ago revised parking ordinances, and it was on our agenda. We never got to it. I expressed some concern that it might be going ahead without us. I think, in fact, that might be the case. Can you help on that, Kelly?
I don't believe that's the case. I know that they just had a workshop on it yesterday, so I think it's just been getting more feedback from the commission and from, the residents. So unless you know anything, I don't know.
I'd like to go check into it and then report back, so that I have watched part of the discussion from last night, but I didn't finish the watching it. So I want to go watch what was discussed. But where I'm having a blank is I don't remember it being scheduled for this board.
Oh, okay.
And that's why I want to go back and double check and see.
No, it was. I couldn't find it this afternoon to bring it. But
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely scheduled for
Yeah.
this board. I
I
guess
remember
I
it
don't
being on
know
an
the
agenda
schedule.
and that we didn't get to it. That's the part I don't remember. So I want to go look into that, check with Rebecca Desari. She's our principal planner in charge of long range and would be handling any code amendments.
I would just like to say, as a
report back.
trained city planner with a degree from a relatively well-known university, that I am very concerned about some of the discussion around in lieu parking. And what I saw in that document was kind of a perspective that in lieu is a bad thing. In lieu parking was invented to make sure that downtowns could survive, that they did not become parking lots, and that each parcel, each proposal, each applicant is somewhat unique, and they be given they be given an opportunity other than providing parking. That's where the in lieu comes from. I think there's a restaurant called The Grove on Pineapple Grove that expanded, took in one more bay, and they paid $1 million in lieu parking in order to expand their restaurant. There basically is literally no way to put parking on Pineapple Grove. And they were given the opportunity to do that, and they felt it was worth enough in terms of their business to make that kind of payment. I know we also, John was involved somewhat with this, discussed with regard to docks and that development having 50% in lieu parking. And that was a somewhat heated discussion. But the fact of the matter is you do not want to put ground floor, non-structured parking in the middle of your city. And fortunately with PEB Capital, they were willing to pay the millions of dollars to put that underground.
I'm confused. What are we doing right now?
I think that we need to weigh in on what was put before us in terms of parking regulations, specifically in terms of in lieu.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll find out from you.
Yeah.
We'll find out for you when it's meant to come back, or if it is. If it's not, we'll give you the information. I would just say, if you haven't already, that the workshop yesterday might provide some insight on where it is in the process, and kind of what the commission had, like the recommendations that they had for it. So
I'll check into it, and I will email everybody with what the status is and a link to yesterday's meeting.
perfect.
And I think the link to historic preservation, which I think was
Sure.
also behind your question,
Okay.
is that the buildings that tend to be torn down for parking lots are of an older generation.
Sure. Okay, so we'll bring it back to you via an email and what the status is, and perhaps you may want to talk about it more once you see that at our next meeting.
Okay. Anything else?
Yes? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.